So, at the encouragement of Rob Bailey and a number of you, even though I have a face for radio and even then it's questionable, I'm going to start sharing some insights into how it is that we do sales and how it is those sales lessons can apply to you making money with Go High Level. Now, I'm not a content producer, so please, I just want you to ask questions about what it is that I share. Criticize the quality of the video, criticize the way that I present, criticize the way that I look. It's fine, but it's just not going to be productive. But if you have questions about what I say and what I share and how it is that you can incorporate it, please, by all means, ask away. I always want to try to build off of other things that I've talked about. And oftentimes the way that I can do that is by referencing comments that people made, because in many cases, those comments provide valuable insights that allow us to build a deeper understanding of the sales process. And in particular, when I shared my original post from insights from my session at the Level Up Summit, one person commented that it is incredibly risky to create a profitability guarantee on the front end. And I actually thought that was a great comment, because that is one of the most reasonable objections to creating a profitability guarantee. And because it is so reasonable, it actually gives us something to make our offer even better. So how do we do that? How do we take a profitability guarantee and not make it risky for us? Well, the first thing that I want to share is that the risk is not actually in the guarantee. The risk is the fact that you can't sign clients. There is always going to be a challenge in terms of delivering services, but you can't have that challenge in delivering services if you never get the opportunity to face it. So in other words, if you can't make sales, you don't have to overcome that hurdle. So what that basically means is, if you don't understand that there is a greater risk of you never making a sale, then you can't ever approach the problem. You have to understand the environment in which you operate. Selling Go High Level as a SaaSpreneur, or if you mix it in with services like we do as an upsell, there are literally tens of thousands of people out there that sell similar or competing solutions. And think about it. How many of us are there inside of this community? Over 100,000 that are interested in learning how it is that you can use High Level to generate revenue. And how many of us out there are set up with our own agency accounts doing that very thing? We're selling the same technology. If we go out there and sell the same technology, we're inevitably going to be competing against one another, even if we focus on different niches. But it isn't just the fact that there is us that we're competing against, but there are other platforms out there that do something similar, if not identical, to what High Level does. So we're not just competing against this community, we're competing against a half a dozen other communities out there that offer the same sort of technology. And you're talking about niching. Also remember that there are tons of software platforms out there that are industry specific. Again, I work in real estate, so we're talking about things like Bold Trail and even brokerages like Keller Williams that have their own system called KW Command, I believe it is. Either way, there's an incredible amount of noise. So the risk that you guarantee profitability is far less that you never even get to make that conversation happen, which is why it is that one of the primary rules you have to operate under is that you guarantee or you deliver profitability. You don't deliver software. You don't even deliver services. You don't even deliver some general outcome or some industry or niche specific outcome. You guarantee profitability, pure and simple. That is your job, to sell the bottom line. Now, to go back to that comment, I think it's incredibly powerful because we get to sit there and ask, how do we actually sell profitability and guarantee it in the course of a conversation. You see, what a lot of people do when they're selling high level is they will go in with this idea that you have to latch on to a specific feature. And right now, the AI agents are an incredibly powerful feature to latch onto because they free up a tremendous amount of time, because they focus the business in ways that you didn't have the ability to focus before. But if you can't connect that to the logical reasoning of making a profit in somebody's business, it doesn't matter how great the technology is, you're going to struggle to make those sales. So how is it that we can profitably guarantee somebody else's profitability and help ourselves in the process? Well, the discovery process that we use answers 4 questions. Who is the market that they serve? What are the challenges they have serving that market? What are the barriers to overcoming those challenges? And what have they already tried? Asking those questions in order gives you a very thorough understanding of where their business is operating and how their business is operating. And while those are very broad questions, you can actually narrow down the specificity of the answer you get by using the 5 why techniques. In other words, when you ask what somebody's market is, and they start to say, well, I work with roofers. All right, fantastic. Tell me why roofers are having such a struggle right now making money. Force them to go through the logical analysis of understanding who their market really is and how they're struggling to connect to that market. Remember, if our job is to sell profitability to our potential clients, they have the same job to sell profitability to their particular clients. So do the same thing here. Just ask those why questions, answer those 4 broadly focused questions in the context of your particular clients. And why is that the case? Because once you're able to do that, once you're able to draw out that really holistic understanding of their business, you can actually start to understand the one barrier that is preventing them from making money. You see, profitability is prevented from a constraint inside the business. And that constraint can't move any more sales in your client's context than the system, than that constraint allows inside of the system. If you can identify where that constraint is, you then can offer specific solutions. And if you can offer specific solutions, you then can start to tie in specific features into high level that will allow you to demonstrate for them how you guarantee profitability. You see, when we talk about that guarantee, it's not really a risk to us because we've defined the logical cause and effect between fixing that bottleneck, needing high level, and guaranteeing the outcome. And again, when I go back to OGs like Rob Bailey, that's essentially what he did. Would walk into gym owners, would guarantee that he could bring them in more appointments than they had right at that moment, using nothing more than the list they already had. He didn't have to go into the details of the technology. He didn't have to go into the details of how his company worked. He just simply had to say, if you're willing to share that list, you're willing to give me a month to prove myself, I am willing to demonstrate for you how it is that we can make you more money. Boom, clap, done. It's over with. Let me show you another example from our own experience in the last couple of weeks. We have appointment setters, like a lot of you, that are putting people on our calendar so that we can make these sales calls. And we had a great sales call last week with a company in the real estate market, but a different type of company than we had worked with before. Over the course of sitting with them for about an hour, we spent probably about 60% of that call just asking questions about who they serve, how they connect their services to the community they serve, and what sort of challenges they have. And what we eventually found was that their bottleneck was not advertising. Their bottleneck was actually the fact that they didn't connect their sales teams to their marketing teams in a way that allowed for marketing to do its job better. And more importantly, bring in the types of leads and clients that they actually need to increase sales. So their properties and their inventory was sitting longer, not collecting revenue for them. Then we provided a few little simple AI employees a description of how they might change the process, and then scheduled a time to follow up later this week. Now here's the thing. They had a very specific budget that they wanted to spend on both advertising and agency fees. But if they came in and spent that money on advertising, it limited the amount of my ability as an agency to make money, but they also didn't have a system to leverage those advertising dollars well. So rather than taking money and not being able to guarantee results, I showed them how they could make simple changes without spending any money to improve the throughput, sales of their own business. And who is it, because I guaranteed those results, that they're willing to come back to and give that entire budget to? Hopefully our company. It didn't cost me anything. It didn't cost them anything. And yet I have a better opportunity to make more money than simply collecting a one-time fee that was spread out over a couple of months that amounted to a couple $100s per month. Doesn't work like that. That's not how a company can maintain its profitability in the long term. Remember, your job as a company owner or a salesperson is not to make a one-time sale. Your goal should be to generate revenue for your company as many times as possible, for as long as possible, for as much as you possibly can. Now, that doesn't mean you take money from your clients and not perform. Quite the opposite. The best way to guarantee your profitability is to guarantee theirs. And the way that you offer the right piece of high level to companies that absolutely need it is to focus on their process, especially during that discovery session at the front end. And of course, you can build this into a variety of methods of delivering that discovery process, whether it be webinars or one-on-one sales calls, which I still love doing. Now, I will tell you, my sales process is not something I just created out of thin air. Like a lot of you, I do R&D, rip off and duplicate, which is exactly what I did in this case by taking chapter 22 of the book, It's Not Luck, and adapting it to what our company does and the services we provide. You can find a link to It's Not Luck as well as other books written by Ellie Goldratt in the description of this video below. Either way, start to investigate the assumptions you're making about why it is that you have to protect your own profit margins before you protect that of your clients. You do not exist in a vacuum. Your company exists in a marketplace, which means you have to look at the entirety of the marketplace to understand how to give yourself a decisive advantage. I guarantee you will if you focus on that profitability guarantee on the front end and develop a system that allows you to accept very little risk while providing a lot of benefits to your clients. As always, I'm here to answer questions. I would love to help, and please make sure you hit that follow button below as we share more and more of these videos for our friends in the high-level community.